The big get joining us this week is Jay Wright, longtime head coach of men's basketball at Villanova and now a college hoops analyst with CBS Sports. Jay, thanks for joining the Sports Media Podcast.
Great to be with you.
Obviously, busy time of the year for you. That this is now your second full season as an analyst. How has that transition been going from the sidelines to the studio?
It's really been fun and more enjoyable even than I thought. I don't miss the coaching as much, but I'm loving when I'm doing games on the road, going to practices, watching guys practice. As crazy as college basketball is, it's amazing. Everybody after practice is like, Jay, can you come up to my office? Can we talk? And then we get up there and they're like, this is crazy. What's going on? And I get to see how other people run their programs. And then game day is awesome. I never lose, I go watch a great game and then I go home, I forget about it. So it's been a lot of fun.
Do you think there is more, parity within men's college basketball than ever before? And is parity a good thing for the popularity of the sport?
I do, Austin. I do think there's more parity. However, I do think this year, just because of the way these teams have played, I think Houston, Purdue, and Connecticut have kind of separated themselves. Now, I say there's parity because they haven't separated themselves to the point where no one can beat them, but they are, I do think, elite, and I do think worthy of getting to the Final Four. But what has changed is some of the great teams. You look at Kansas right now, who has probably the best starting five in the country, but with Hunter Dickinson being injured and the other guard being injured, they don't have the depth that they would normally have because of the transfer portal, because now guys that might sit at Kansas and wait for their time, like right now, two guys are hurt, they'd step up and play in the NCAA tournament. They're not at Kansas. They're playing at TCU against Kansas. So there's a lot of guys that used to be on the benches, like the 8th, 9th, 10th man, that kept the Blue Bloods where they were at the top, that are actually playing on teams that play against them now.
I mean, in that case, do you think the transfer portal has been like a good thing or a bad thing, for college basketball? Because, last year, and I'm just talking about the TV numbers here, when we had an FAU and we had San Diego State in that Final Four, the numbers reflected that, and the tournament kind of ended down because you didn't have the Blue Bloods. So is that a direct impact of the transfer portal?
It is. It is a direct impact. But I think this year, though, you're going to see, I think, a lot of the top seeds in the Final Four just because of the way they are this year. I don't think last year the top seeds were as indomitable as they are this year. But I think that, Austin, that's part of sports, it's just the same thing in the NFL. If a major market team doesn't get to the Super Bowl, the numbers are down, and I think sometimes when you don't have the Blue Bloods. I remember in 22, my last year coaching, it was Kansas, Carolina, Duke, and Villanova. And everybody says
It's nice for TV getting that Carolina Duke game in the Final Four.
Yes, exactly. So I think sometimes it's still going to happen, but I don't. I think still the top teams will advance. There'll be an upset or two. That's a good story, but I do think last year was an anomaly.
Yeah, Cinderella is always really great earlier on. Later on, the TV networks in particular want to get those blue blood teams in there.
For business, you're right.
Circling back to NIL a little bit, do you think that, or the transfer portal plus NIL, do you think that's going to help or harm the sport's popularity in the long run?
I don't think it's hurting the popularity. I really don't, Austin. I'm amazed at football and basketball, how the coaches have adapted and they're able to put great products on the court and on the football field, with guys that are coming in for 1 year. I don't think the level of play has gone down at all. As a matter of fact, as we were just talking about, I think the level of play has increased because of the NIL and the transfer portal, because I think there's more parity, and I think guys are staying in college longer. So you're seeing veteran players play because they're getting paid. There are a lot of guys in the past, I would say 50% of the guys that left early were leaving early because they thought that was their one opportunity, but they don't get drafted and they're in the G League or playing in Europe when they really could be in college for another year and be preparing themselves for the NBA. Well, now they stay and they get paid. And then when they're going into the NBA, they're a more finished product. What concerns me, Austin, is the connection to academics. I think the transfer portal and NIL are making this professional sports. And I think we're going to lose an entity in our country that we don't have anywhere else in the world. People come from all over the world to play in a college atmosphere where they're getting their education. You can still get your NIL money, but we gotta limit it. We gotta limit the transfers so this people following the sport still have a connection to their student athletes, and we're still using college athletics to prepare young people for their futures.
Important question here for you, Jay. Have you already started getting messages from friends and family about all of the great clips on the air for March Madness?
Yeah, yes, I have, man. Puts pressure on me also. I gotta keep my hair. I had to get cleaned up before I came on with you. It's gotta look good.
You had to get it cleaned up. Yeah,
I'm
I saw some of the ads during the selection show. I had to go high and tight because I was seeing all the ads. It's subliminal messaging.
Exactly. It's pressure on me, man. The dude's gotta look good. I tell the makeup people, we gotta make this look good, man. I'm repping.
So your former conference, the Big East, got just 3 bids to the dance this year, its lowest figure since 1993. You had 3 20-win teams in St. John's, Seton Hall, Providence, snubbed. But fans were watching that conference tournament, so the popularity's there. Best viewership numbers in years for the Big East. Do you think this year was just an anomaly for the conference, or do the Big East coaches and administrators and Val Ackerman have some work to do in the offseason to really keep the Big East atop the elite NCAA basketball conferences?
I think this is an outlier. I really do. And to your point, Austin, that I was at the Big East tournament. It is still Madison Square Garden, Thursday, Friday night semifinals, Saturday night is just electric. It's like a Knicks playoff game. It's incredible. The passion for the game in the Northeast is as good as it's ever been. Connecticut brings a lot back to the Big East. St. John's being in it was awesome. I think what happened this year, again, which is a real outlier, is that there's 5 teams in the NCAA tournament that were not going to be in the NCAA tournament. NC State, the American Conference champion, Oregon, Duquesne, New Mexico was not in the field to start. UAB from the American Conference. So there's 5 teams that we're not going to be in. And you see in the committee listed it, Seton Hall was one of the first teams out. So they would have normally been in. And I think Providence and St. John's, at least one of them were right there as like the 5th team out. They would have normally been in. And they just happened to be right there. Like one win here or there for any one of those teams would have had, I think, 5 Big East teams in at least. So it was just a crazy year with all these upsets in the conference tournaments.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Big East is in a good spot. I do think it was an anomaly. The place was packed. The numbers were there on TV. I'm really glad that the conference got locked up at the Garden, so they'll be able to have a 50th anniversary there in a couple of years. So I do think this, was just kind of a one-off, and I look forward to seeing them rebound next year.
Agreed.
But your former school, Villanova, accepted a bid to the NIT, but there were many schools that missed the dance that did not. I'm talking about St. John's, Memphis, Ole Miss, Pitt, Oklahoma, some big names. This was kind of a new step this year by the NCAA to offer more of these at-large bids to the NIT from these big conferences versus those automatic qualifiers who had won their regular seasons at smaller conferences. So if you were still coaching a team that had just missed out in the dance, would you have taken an NIT spot this year?
I mean, I always would, and it's one of the things we talked about at Villanova is having respect for the game, respect for the NIT, respect for our responsibilities representing our university. All that's important to us. College athletics has changed so much. You do have some unique situations where you might have a couple guys that know that they're going to the NBA and have been playing through injuries through their tournament to try to get to the NCAA tournament. Now they're not in it and they're not going to keep playing. I know we can't disclose some of them, but I know there's a couple guys at Villanova that have some injuries, have been waiting till the end of the year to get them taken care of. and a couple of those guys are going to play through it. And then with the new transfer portal, you do have guys that are waiting through the end of the year for the year to be over. You know, they're not playing enough, so the year's over, and they're saying, "All right, we're not going to the tournament. I'm not letting anybody down, so I'm going in the transfer portal now." It's another aspect of the transfer portal and NIL that we've got to get cleaned up. And also, you know, now you're earning NIL money, and whether we say it's paid for play or not, if you're representing the school and you have a contract, an NIL contract, I think you probably in the future will have that as part of your contract that you got to play. So it's all a part of the change in college athletics. As I said to you earlier, all of that I think can be remedied in time. What's most important is we keep the connection to academics, because that is a process in our country that develops leaders for the rest of our life. Not these guys that go into the NBA, but the 98% of student athletes that get scholarships, get their degree, and become leaders in our country because of athletics.
All right, Jason, quick hitters to get you out of here. Your
You got it.
favorite host city for a Final Four?
Oh man, great question. You know what? San Antonio. That after we won the championship in San Antonio, we did a river ride on a boat, down a boat. People were hanging out of trees, hanging out of buildings. It was awesome.
All right, outside of the Final Four, so this could be maybe a smaller market, those first, second round games. Any other favorite host cities?
We always wound up playing early rounds in Pittsburgh. It was awesome. It was easy for Villanova people to get there. Great town. I liked our first round games in Pittsburgh.
Jay, how often are you talking to your former players? And by that, I just mean the current Knicks squad.
I just talked to Josh Hart last night at about 1:00 in the morning because they were playing at Golden State, and I happened in a hotel room. I happened to be able to watch the game, and he played every minute of the game. He never came out of the game, but he's not making his jumper because I think he's getting a little tired. He's getting a little sloppy. So I talked to him about his jumper. So as often as I can.
You know, everyone always talked about your sideline fashion, and you're quoted as saying that you never wore the same suit in the same gym. Do you pay attention to fashion when you are watching sports or entertainment award shows?
Wow, great question. I do. I do. I don't critique people like I think what you're referring to is there used to be a website called Wright Suits where they used to critique me. So people would send that to me. I knew they were doing it. So I thought I better be on top of my game a little more than I thought here. But I don't critique it. But I just like to see people that look good, dress nice, maybe have a new look. I do like that.
One thing you would change about college basketball?
The transfer portal. Just have contracts with the players that determine their length of time. And if we were working on NILs, give them buyouts, give them buyouts to get out of their contracts. But at least you got to know a guy is committed to being there for at least 2 or 3 years.
Who are some people outside of basketball that you admire or have learned from?
There's a lot of Villanova alums who are Wall Street guys. There's a guy and businessmen that I've learned a lot from. A friend of mine, Billy and Jim Davis, who are Villanova alums, and they very successful businessmen, great golfers. They helped me with golf. In the TV world, Clark Kellogg, Seth Davis has been really good to me, really helpful me. Bill Raftery has been really helpful to me. So I'm still a rookie at this, and I've got a lot to learn in this business.
All right, last question. Which was more memorable for you, winning that first national title or winning the second one?
You know what was probably the most memorable, that I was probably the most excited and emotional about, was the first time we went to a Final Four.
Ooh.
I don't know if you remember, Scotty Reynolds hit a shot at the buzzer for us to beat Pitt in Boston. I think it was St. Patty's Day weekend. The Villanovans were up there going crazy.
Reynolds.
When we came back to the hotel, I felt like we were, like Bruce Springsteen or something. It was crazy. They almost carried us through the crowd. It was incredible because it was the first time since '85 at that point. So it had been a long time, and it was our first time.
Well, I like any podcast where we can get a Big Country Bryant Reeves reference in, so I do appreciate you going back on that one. We're going to be seeing a lot of you on TV. Jay Wright, CBS Sports college analyst. Good luck with all the March Madness coverage, and thanks for joining the Sports Media Pod.
Thanks, Austin. Great to be with you, buddy.